Welcome back. In our previous episode, we explored how polytheism and monotheism create fundamentally different types of thinking. Today, we'll examine exactly how this monotheistic transformation occurred and why it produced an entirely new type of human being. With the advent of Jewish religious law, the natural way of human existence gave way to a spiritualized existence. The source of this change was the one God who created man for incorruption and made him in the image of his eternal being. This existence was driven by purposeful direction, which had a transcendent character. It was formed by the Jew as an active agent, projecting onto himself the qualities of the transcendent God known from the Torah. The adoption of monotheism by the people of Israel led to a revolutionary change. Genesis replaced evolution. What does this mean? Adaptation and imitation of nature gave way to the historical process, and the first architect and builder of this process was the people of Israel. One scholar observed, "A special light shines from the very beginning on this small, lonely people. How much easier it would have been for the Jews if they had agreed to merge with pagan cults. But each time, they were held back by the fiery obsession of a few inspired ones." Why this resistance? Because evolution as an adaptive mode of existence could not form fundamentally new mental traits among pagans. The pagan world did not know the idea of development. Everything in it repeated from cycle to cycle. But Genesis, as the formation of new quality, predetermined the emergence of a different type of life. Existence as inventive self-determination in the image and likeness of God. This elevated man above the natural context, establishing his unconditional primacy in the world and power among all things. Here's the crucial distinction. Adaptation over time merely improved the existing type of human. But innovative development formed a radically different self-determining agent with new mental qualities. Historically, a monotheistic person gained the ability to go beyond the adaptive pagan type of existence into the space of inventive transformation of both the natural and social environment, and ultimately, the transformation of himself. The inventive monotheistic agent developed the ability to transcend ordinary necessity and build the history of not only his own life, but also of the society in which he participates. All adaptive forms of pagan life activity are mentally limited. They cannot achieve transcendence. They cannot go beyond the limits of existence pre-established by nature. They could recreate and continue themselves through generations, but lack the potential for self-determination, which defines an active agent. Any adaptive form of life is essentially incapable of self-transformation. The evolutionary process subordinates whatever changes under its influence. But the historical process is built by the monotheistic agent himself, who transforms himself and reshapes the surrounding world. A monotheistic person as an agent contains a fundamental principle that exists outside the natural world. Human existence becomes not only the implementation of essence, but also the invention of its essence. This helps explain the paradigmatic significance of Judaism in the subsequent development of European civilization. A person who transcends adaptive pagan forms gains the opportunity to become the architect of his own innovation. As an agent, he actively builds history, develops himself, his new abilities, values, and strategic goals. This explains the phenomenon we observed in our first episode. While pagan and neo-pagan societies remain trapped in adaptive thinking patterns, Jewish monotheistic culture builds and transforms reality. This is why populations with this type of thinking consistently demonstrate intellectual and technological advantages over much larger populations operating under different mental frameworks. The difference isn't about resources or territory. It's about fundamentally different approaches to solving problems and creating solutions. In our next episode, We'll examine how monotheism forms deep-rooted attitudes and motivations that have lasting political significance. We'll explore why this particular mental framework has such remarkable staying power across millennia. If you're interested in understanding how ancient thinking patterns shape modern capabilities, subscribe to the channel. In the comments, share your thoughts. Can you identify adaptive versus innovative approaches in different fields you know? See you in the next episode, where we'll uncover the secret of enduring political influence through transcendent motivation. Welcome back. In our previous episode, we examined how monotheistic thinking created unprecedented capacity for creative problem-solving and innovation. Today, we'll explore a remarkable historical phenomenon that helps explain modern geopolitical patterns, how certain cultural frameworks produce extraordinary political longevity and influence. This analysis reveals measurable principles that apply to understanding contemporary international relations and technological leadership. Throughout history, we observe a fascinating pattern. Most ancient civilizations, regardless of their initial power or sophistication, eventually disappeared as distinct political entities. Consider the Mediterranean world of antiquity. The Phoenicians dominated maritime trade. The Babylonians built vast empires. The various Greek city-states pioneered democratic governance. Ancient Egypt lasted for millennia. Yet today, none of these exist as continuous political communities. Their languages, institutions, and political identities dissolved into history. However, certain communities demonstrate remarkable continuity. They maintain coherent identity and influence across spans of time that would typically destroy political entities. What distinguishes communities that achieve such resilience from those that follow typical historical cycles of rise and decline? Academic research suggests that political communities organized around transcendent principles operate under different dynamics than those based purely on territorial, ethnic, or material factors. Transcendent frameworks, whether philosophical, religious, or ideological, can create what scholars call superconscious motivational structures. These operate independently of immediate environmental pressures or temporal limitations. Unlike political systems that depend on specific geographical conditions or generational leadership, transcendent frameworks provide continuity across changing circumstances. This explains why certain small communities can maintain disproportionate influence over much longer periods than conventional political analysis would predict. The Jewish historical experience provides a remarkable case study in political resilience through transcendent orientation. After nearly 2 millennia, without territorial sovereignty, Jewish communities successfully re-established national independence in 1948. This achievement required maintaining coherent political identity and capability across unprecedented temporal and geographical dispersion. How was such continuity possible? Traditional theories of nationalism and state formation cannot adequately explain this phenomenon. The answer lies in understanding how transcendent law and collective identity can preserve political subjectivity, even under conditions that would typically dissolve political communities. Jewish communities developed what we might call distributed political organization, maintaining coordinated capability across multiple territories and time periods through shared commitment to transcendent principles. This created unprecedented resilience. While territorial states could be conquered and their political structures dismantled, distributed networks organized around transcendent law proved far more difficult to eliminate. Modern Israel represents the territorial consolidation of political capabilities that were developed and maintained across centuries through this distributed model. This explains contemporary phenomena we discussed in our first episode. why Israel's international influence far exceeds what conventional analysis of population and resources would predict. Four major monotheistic traditions, Judaism, Eastern Christianity, Western Christianity, and Islam, all demonstrate similar patterns of creating transcendent political orientations. Each system generates distinct approaches to political organization, legal frameworks, and international relations, based on their particular understanding of transcendent principles. These differences in transcendent orientation correlate with measurable differences in scientific output, technological innovation, and economic development patterns across different populations. Such correlations suggest that transcendent frameworks significantly influence collective problem-solving capabilities and institutional development. Understanding these dynamics helps explain contemporary patterns in international relations, technological leadership, and economic development. Communities that maintain strong transcendent orientations often demonstrate capabilities that exceed predictions based on conventional measures of power, population size, natural resources, or military spending. They develop what political scientists call force multiplication, the ability to achieve strategic objectives through superior organization and coordination, rather than raw material advantage. This principle applies beyond any single community. Silicon Valley's dominance in technology, Switzerland's influence in international finance, and Singapore's role in global trade all demonstrate how transcendent organizing principles can create outsized influence. In political science, we identify certain entities as super-subjects, actors capable of influencing international systems disproportionately to their apparent resources. Super-subjects typically demonstrate three characteristics. First, they maintain coherent strategic vision across long time periods. Second, they develop distributed networks that operate across multiple territories. Third, they possess superior capability for innovation and adaptation. These characteristics emerge most readily in communities organized around transcendent principles, rather than purely material or territorial considerations. This analysis has practical implications for understanding contemporary geopolitics and economic competition. Nations and organizations that develop transcendent organizing principles, whether based on religious tradition, philosophical frameworks, or institutional cultures, often achieve sustainable advantages over competitors focused purely on material accumulation. The key insight is that transcendent orientation creates different types of strategic thinking. Instead of optimizing for immediate circumstances, it enables planning and coordination across much longer time horizons. In our next episode, we'll examine the specific historical moment that established one of history's most influential transcendent political frameworks, the formation of collective identity at Mount Sinai. We'll analyze how revelation and collective commitment create lasting institutional advantages, and why this particular model proved so effective for maintaining political coherence across millennia. If you're interested in how transcendent principles create measurable political and economic advantages, subscribe to the channel. In the comments, share examples of transcendent organizing principles you've observed in successful organizations or communities. See you in the next episode, where we'll explore how collective revelation creates enduring political institutions.